Hello and welcome to the episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. I am your host, Neil Horowitz. You can find me on Twitter, NJH287, also on LinkedIn where I post more content. The website, as always, dsmsports.net. And of course, you can follow along, subscribe, find the podcast on your preferred podcast platform. I told you guys that we'd be back. If you listened to the most recent episode, it was a best of, some really good stuff on that. But 1 week later, we are back closing out the year 2023. Depending on when you're listening to this, it'll be either right before or right after the big event that today's guest helps oversee the marketing communications for. Today's podcast guest is Miller Yoho. He is Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation. They put on a number of events, including the Jumpman Invitational. But what we'll talk about most today is the Duke's Mayo Bowl. If you are anywhere around the greater sports space, you no doubt know the Duke's Mayo Bowl, a annual college football bowl game. It used to be called the Belk Bowl, Monty Car Care Bowl before that, based in Charlotte. At Bank of America Stadium, and they do such a good job on social. Miller is behind the majority of that. Their content, their personality, their strategy, of course, going viral every year with the Mayo dump on the coach, just a tremendous thing. And that game is on Wednesday, December 27th. So depending on when you're listening to this, it'll be right before or right after or maybe long after. But just so much good stuff coming from Miller. We talk about what it's like to really manage that brand and get on the map as much as possible, especially around the time leading up to the bowl game and when the teams get named, making the most of mayonnaise, having their personality, making sure they're representing the bowl game, reaching college football fans, but representing the bowl game alongside the title sponsor of the bowl game, Duke's Mayo. Two separate brands, but two brands that certainly end up intersecting through the bowl game. Just lots of good stuff here from Miller Yoho. Here he is, Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation, Miller Yoho. Right back with today's guest, and I'm so psyched to be able to talk to him. It is right around the busiest time of year, but he is lending us some of his time. My guest on the podcast today is Miller Yoho. He is Director of Communications and Marketing for Charlotte Sports Foundation, the organization behind the Jumpman Invitational, and coming up very soon, depending on when you're listening to this, the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Welcome to the podcast today, Miller.
Neil, thank you so much for having me.
Hell yeah, so psyched to talk about all the cool stuff that you guys get to do. I think everyone who's listening to this is definitely aware of Duke's Mayo Bowl and how you guys have really created a hell of a brand for the game and just do a tremendous job. But before we get into the meat of our discussion, tell us about you. What's your background, the stops along the way, what you're doing today, and all the tips for folks that want to do what you do.
Yeah, so I went to school. I thought I was going to be a high school history teacher. I walked into a high school class in college and was going to student teach, and I said, these people do not like me. This is not a good fit. So I was like, you know what? I really, really like intramurals. That's what I excelled at in college rather than grades. And I went and I decided to do intramurals and got my master's degree in higher ed administration and counseling, and applied to like 70 jobs, couldn't figure it out, and ended up at Queens, which was D2 at the time. And they said, we can give you an internship. We'll only pay you if you do jobs that are paid. So that's where I learned to do PA announcer for women's lacrosse, everything. Did that for 8 months. And eventually I became full time. And that was a job that I look back on fondly, where I had marketing for 19 sports, included all digital, everything with that. I did sponsorship sales for the athletic department, sold tickets, and then I was a sports information director for 6 teams. So I did literally everything but coach. From there, I was able to go to the Sports Foundation for the first time in 2014. I say for first time. I've been working on the Duke's Mayo Bowl or previously the Belk Bowl accounts for 10 years, but I was there in a smaller role for 2 years, and then I went agency side for 2 years. Then I started my own social media company for 2 years and kept all that. And then I still kept the social accounts and went to video production. But in 2021, I called my good friend Will Pitts back, who's our COO, and said, hey, I would love to come back. Here's my vision for the position, which is pretty much anything external, brand facing, digital. I get to focus on. And I'd go, it's a lot, but we have incredible agency partners who back us up. But it could be anything from spokesperson to logo approval to social media. We have 11 platforms, I think, right now between all our events and stuff. So it's a busy life, but it's certainly a passion project. And I'll wrap it up by the reason I love it so much is I grew up going to our games. I'm one of those rare situations in the industry where you have a passion for it because it is part of your, I guess, who I am. I grew up going to the Monty Car Care Bowl. It's funny. My favorite football game of all time was the 2008 Monty Car Care, bowl between UNC and West Virginia, who we have in the bowl game this year.
Wow.
And that was my favorite because it was my first football. It was one of my first like college games I went to with my dad. And this will be the first game that my two sons will go to together. So I'm really excited
Wow.
about it.
Talk about a full circle moment. What a really
Yeah.
cool thing. So in your role today, and even thinking about like, you had this experience at the smaller school of wearing so
Mhm.
many hats, and now in your current role, it seems like you also have to wear a lot of hats. You're like, do you think are you a project manager? You're a creative director, or like you kind of have to do a little bit of everything? Does that make it harder that you can't specialize in certain things? You're kind of a master of none to some degree, not to put in the terms like that, but like what is your day to day like, and what skills do you have to really lean into, and what do you have to sort of not outsource is the wrong term, but skill up at times?
Yeah, no, I think to be in my role, you have to first know your weaknesses, right? Like, I know I'm not a graphic designer. I know when I even worked in video content, I shouldn't touch a camera. I don't edit. That's just not my skill. So we have a full video production, content production arm company that I used to manage that we bring in, paid ads and stuff like that. That's just such a beast. I'll use an agency for that. All our creative looks. It's an incredible agency called Luke Wire. Even just we're coming out of the Jumpman Invitational. Generally, I handle all PR duties. It was just too much to
Yeah.
do. So I bring them on to help. And it's just recognizing your weaknesses. But you ask a really valuable question. I think project management is extremely important, especially in the creative field, is understanding deadlines. And it's so often we chase perfection and understanding the creative process. If you chase perfection, is never going to end, and you're never going to get the piece of content out, or you're never going to hit the home. Like you should aim for doubles, not home runs. And usually, if you do that, and if you're good, you'll hit the home runs. You'll get the viral moments. But so many times I see people in my role they almost try to squeeze perfection out, or they get caught in the overwhelming amount of things and don't bring in help or raise their hand when they need help, and they just get kind of bogged down.
And like I guess thinking about your when you kind of decided what you want to do with your career and coming up in the space, was there a time where you're like, okay, I can lean more into video production, I can lean more into social, I can lean more into marketing, I can lean more into PR and comms? Like, did you kind of make a conscious choice, or did it kind of just happen organically?
It's honestly organically. It's every skill set I had. I've done that job specifically, or every part of my job. So I've done the digital content side. I've done that as a single job. I've done paid social as a single job. I've done PR when I was at the agency. I worked the PGA Championship and learned that way. I learned video production. I was a project manager. So every part of my job I've done specifically, and that's it. I think that's something. If anyone's younger or starting their career, I try to tell people it's the first 10, 12 years of your career is building the toolkit, right? Like if you have the job you want, look at the job description and what are the five pieces of it, and then go like get the experience in each one of those five pieces. And then when it's time 10, 12 years and you're applying for that dream job or whatnot, and I certainly think I have my dream job, it's you'll have the skill set to be able to do what you need to do.
Love that advice. I mean, I always echo the same thing of like the job description of your dream job. That's your cheat sheet. Like that's where you
Yeah.
can pick off every bullet and figure and learn those skills,
And
get that experience, and you're in.
and I was supposed to be running intramurals and stuff like that. I applied for a job at USA Ultimate Frisbee and stuff like I was supposed to do all these other things, and I fell into this. And where I think my success, or I think the success is it's showing up, being a good person, and then I truly think any communications, any marketing position, you have to approach it as support for everything else. Whether you're in your athletic department, a bowl game, the professional team. Like my job is to support ticket sales efforts. My job is to support operations. My job is to support senior staff with talking points and whatnot. Like everything I do is in support of other people. I'm never like whereas people may see my face or hear me talking or see the content I'm putting out there, it's all being done to message things for other departments who are mission critical.
Yeah. And let's dive into that now. Like, give us first, I guess, an overview of what the Charlotte Sports Foundation is, all the events you guys manage, and then let's like go into more particulars of what all these goals are, what these objectives are that you're
Yeah.
trying to manage and balance all the time.
Yeah, so we're an 8-person team. We're it's actually was just announced today. Is our executive director? I think I'd start with that is Danny Morrison, who is probably the most decorated person in this field. He's the only person I know alive who's been and he was just named Business Person of the Year in Charlotte today. He is the only person who's been a college coach, college AD twice. He both with it Wofford and took them D1 and TCU.
Wow.
Conference commissioner, president of an NFL team with the Panthers, college professor at South Carolina, and now he's our executive director. And he leads a team of 7 or a team of 8. He's part of it. And it's an incredible staff of people where pretty much we all have our own silos. But what's unique is in a small team, you can stick your nose in place.
Yeah.
So like I can go learn from the ticket team, or I can go, see what's going on at events. And it's really, we have the mantra best idea wins. That's said oftentimes. If you even look at how we went about our bowl social media content. We did this whole we view now bowl selection as the way we think it should be treated the same way that the NFL does schedule release day. Why
Yeah.
not have fun content? So we did a whole sorority skit. Like
So
we
good.
took my parents' house and turned it into a sorority. Well, that came from Kalia, who does administration and events. She was on campus at a
Wow.
and she thought she saw a Greek house and said that. Then we took the team through a creative process, and then half the team spent a day in my parents' house that we turned into a Greek sorority. And it was like a full collaborative effort. That wasn't my idea. I just kind of took the team, the process, and knew the platforms. But you're asking about Sports Foundation. Our mission is large sporting events that have either a economic impact or a effective quality of life of Charlotteans. And it's a really simple but specific mission. So we really focus on high events that are going to have large attendance. So with kind of one outlier, which we can talk about, is we want people to fill Bank of America Stadium. It's probably the biggest economic motivator in Charlotte. When that stadium is full, people are spending money. They're going to hotels. They're Uber drivers, restaurants. That's an economic impact. Taxes are generated off that. And then also I talk about the story of myself coming as a kid to games. And like we have to keep in mind, like these are Charlotteans coming to games. They're getting to go to college football games. They're going to go see Jordan brand activations that are insane.
Yeah.
Something that like no one else in America can do. And that's kind of where we fall in as a nonprofit. And we're judged by successes, what our impact is on the economy and quality of life of Charlotteans.
And what are those events like that are recurring and are there
Yeah.
like is part of your job kind of marketing, bringing events to Charlotte so that when someone's looking to have a big sports event that they're going to choose you guys?
Yeah, certainly. Well, we're always pushing the Charlotte sports brand. And I'm purposely saying Charlotte sports because we might be shifting to that nomenclature a little bit. Might be refreshing our brand, a project I'm working on right now, which is fun. But for us, we're always trying to push that forward. And people are probably seeing it since 2021, the city's been on fire with events and the amount of
Yeah.
things growing. We're constantly pitching. We pitched Army Navy, we lost. We're working on other events. And then additionally, kind of our major events to start our calendar really starts in well, we'll be starting in May soon, but this year it started in September with our Duke's Mayo Classic, which is our kickoff football game. This year is North Carolina versus South Carolina. Next year it is NC State, Tennessee. We've also done HBCU games. We've done local rivalries. We just want diversity in that game. Then we launched the Ally Tip-Off, which was Iowa, Virginia Tech, two women's Final Four teams. A little player named Caitlin Clark played in that, and that was one of the most rewarding moments of my life is putting on that game. We put it together in 3 months. We developed the logo and creative platform in 10 days, which is just insane. And then we support the ACC with their football championship game. We have the Jumpman Invitational, which we kind of own and operate and work in conjunction with ESPN events and obviously the Jordan brand. We're a big part of it. And then we also work with partners in that. And then we have the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Then next year, we were challenged to think of something, and I stole an idea from my wife. We'll be starting something called the Mech Mile, which is a running race. We do 2 laps around this 1931-year-old stadium. It's beautiful. They put $40 million into Cub Memorial Stadium. You do 2 laps around it, and you finish on the 50-yard line. And we're really excited because it's going to be built where you can either walk it in a heat, and it could be your first race, Neil. Like if you never run, like it could be the first thing you do. There's no pressure. Or looking at you, I know you're super fast. This is the race you can go race your friends and set your fantasy football league order on how
Yeah.
fast you run a mile. And then we're putting out $20,000 prize money to get the world's fastest people out there. So it's something where you can do it, Neil. Go have a beer and then watch someone go twice as fast as you in the same exact sport.
So wait, you like I'm just grinning here because you basically get to like, for lack of a better term, like back of the napkin sketch out like here's an event we could put on. Here's how it consists of. Here's how we'd market it. Like it comes out almost like maybe not thin air, but almost.
Oh, I mean, I'm looking at a picture of Ally Tip-Off, like it's the background of my computer. Danny watched our executive director was speaking of. He watched the women's Final Four, or really the whole women's tournament, and fell in love with Caitlin Clark the way she played. He's an old basketball coach. He literally picked up the phone and just started working the relationships. Then we have an incredible board of directors. The CEO of Ally said, "Hey,
Wow.
if you pull this off, call me first." And it was immediately done. As soon as we got the teams done, and then, but what's really important about that event is it's also the team payouts were some of the highest we've ever seen. We think it is the largest, it's the highest attended women's basketball game in regular season in North Carolina history.
Wow.
And there's a lot of things that went into doing it the right way. And Ally was an incredible partner in that. And then the Mech Mile was just, it was one of those ones where I kept waiting for people to say no, and no one really did. And now it's in existence with an amazing sponsor in Albemarle.
That is so so cool. And so I mean I understand like it's we're trying to bring big events, people that will spend money to the city of Charlotte. When it comes to like something like a Duke's Mayo Bowl or like a Jumpman Invitational, like is ticket sales your primary KPI when you're thinking about from a marketing strategy perspective? Or like what are these like non obvious, I guess,
Yeah.
KPIs you're looking at and needles you're looking to move?
Yeah, that's a great question because everyone always, thinks they don't understand like what the job is. And we still operate as a nonprofit. So we have to hit certain goals and things like that to keep the doors open and for us to be successful. So ticket revenue, sponsorship, fulfillment, those are the joke is in our office, there's Rev Jim and Rev Spend. I'm obviously Rev Spend team. I'm the captain of it, but I sit between tickets and sponsorship in our office. So we're constantly talking about ticket sales strategy, and any money we put forward should either be pushing for any money we pay on paid social display, anything should be pushing either ticket sales or supporting a sponsorship. With that said, we've also taken the long approach in understanding brand building is important. Like people have seen our strategy for the Duke's Mayo Bowl started in 2014 when it was the Belk Bowl, understanding that no one was going to buy a bowl game ticket in October. So why not just be a part of the college football ecosystem? Why not have fun? Why not make jokes? And by doing that, people developed affinity for the game, and it became a destination rather than being matchup dependent. Now we're still very matchup dependent,
Mhm.
but TV tune in, things like that, people see the Duke's Mayo Bowl as something they want to see, and we do have fans coming because of how weird we are, how much fun, how we wink at the camera and do all that. The same way with Jumpman Invitational, it's unique. It's like you turn on the TV, it stands out. The activations in game, they launched a global marketing thing there last night. Like there's a lot of stuff that
Wow.
goes into our events to make it be distinctive and stand alone.
And I want to like talk about a little about the sponsors behind these. I mean, Jumpman is
Yeah.
certainly a brand that has very well established, very well known. The Jordan brand overall. You mentioned how it was originally the Meineke Car Care Bowl when you were growing up, and then Belk
Uh-huh.
Bowl. And Belk is very well known in that part of the country, especially, and now Duke's Mayo Bowl. Like, how do you separate, or is there separation between we like when people think of this bowl game, they're thinking Duke's Mayo Bowl, and that's the Duke's Mayo brand, or is it the Duke's Mayo Bowl brand? Like, is there a line you have to walk with? Hey, we are representing this title brand, and I'm sure they are very excited to be associated with you guys because you guys do such a great job of activating the bowl game overall and their sponsorship. But I guess I'm having a hard time articulating this. But how do you separate the Duke's Mayo brand and what they do in their day-to-day marketing versus the bowl brand and how much collaboration there is there?
Yeah, I think in terms of like social, and we'll strip away the Jumpman Invitational, because we run Charlotte Sports Foundation social for that. Like we don't run Jumpman Invitational because I'm certainly not qualified to speak on anything that has that man silhouette on it. I don't want to touch that. That's too intimidating. But let's say the Duke's Mayo Bowl. First off, Duke's Mayo has an incredible team. They are Joe, their president, Rebecca, Sarah, Janess, everyone through. They're aligned in what we're trying to do. They understand our mission. We understand theirs. It's aligned. They push us. Their agencies we're very close to. They're based in Charlotte in terms of sports marketing. And so there is that constant healthy pushing to be the best possible. And we get it. They understand and we understand, and we want our games to stand alone. We want in a crowded bowl season marketplace of 40 other sponsors, we want Duke's Mayo to be unique, and we want the Duke's Mayo Bowl to be unique. Now, you do have two different brands. You have the Duke's Mayo Bowl and you have Duke's Mayo. There are places they intersect, and there's places that they probably are not on the same train track, but the train tracks run parallel. I shouldn't be doing something that they deem inappropriate in the same way that like they shouldn't that they're not going to speak about the game in a way that isn't a college football isn't going to relate. So there's a lot of healthy conversations, dialogue. We meet year round, weekly. just to talk through things, activations. So they're very much so, and we're blessed. Like they're rocket fuel to everything we do. They provide the substance and make all the marketing fun. So
Mhm.
yeah, we view it as going back to your original question. We view it as two individual brands, but they're running in parallel tracks. Like our goal in the end is to have, for us, is to have the most impactful bowl game possible that drives ticket sales, drives tune in, everything. And if we do that, that's going to help them sell as much mayonnaise as possible.
Yeah, and I guess to some degree, it's kind of like if a brand works for the creator, like they kind of know what that creator is about, how they what their
Yeah.
strategies on social, and like Duke's Mayo or Belk's not going to come to you if they want to really like buttoned up and like not a brand that's not going to really have a lot of fun. I like that
Yeah.
you kind of have to find that intersection that it's the right partnership fit to some degree too.
Yeah, and they get what we're doing is social. They get what we're doing in everywhere around, and they encourage it. And yes, there's been conversations where they said like, "Hey, that doesn't align with what we're doing," or "Hey, scale that back." And I understand that completely. And like, those are the healthy conversations for us to stay in the same ballpark. If we're not having those, if we're not constantly checking to make sure that we're in line with what they're doing, then we're failing as a supporter of them, and we're failing as an organization because we need to be supporting. I mean, they're investing in us heavily, and we need to show ROI, which we do, and I think everyone has seen what this is kind of, I would say, the epitome of brand marketing via sponsorship should be.
Yeah.
And what's happened for them and also what's happened for the game. That's what happens when you are in harmony together.
Love it. Let's take a brief step back, Miller, and I guess
Yeah.
about the origins of this irreverent, fun, wink at the camera, which I love the way you put that, brand that you guys developed for the bowl game, whether regardless of the title sponsor. Like, how did it come about, and how has it shifted over time, and how formalized is it, and whether it affects just the social media voice personality, or it goes across other activations and other channels.
Yeah, this is the question my wife hates the most, but she hates that it's taken so much of my brain, and then also that it's something that people will always ask her, "Are you married to the Duke's Maple Twitter guy?" And that's like the first question. Um, but for us, it started in 2014 when I first joined the organization. I mean, a fantastic executive director, Will Webb, and Will, you know, we I will always be appreciative that I walked in and pitched a vision and he hired me on the spot. And it was in left field. Like, these organizations have to put butts in seats in order for us to survive. And I said, hey, we should put every dollar we should spend should be selling tickets, but everything organic should never be a sales pitch
Yeah.
because that turns people off. We understand in the college football playoff landscape, through November, no one gives a crap about anything about other than the CFP, right? Like, we understand that ESPN's going to hike up their Tuesday show the rankings, who's playing in these like the premier bowls or whatnot. Everyone's talking about that. That's where all the oxygen is. So why compete with that? Why not look at the other 80-90% of the football and say, hey, we're just gonna be a part of the landscape, have fun. We used to do like best dressed sports writer competitions. I got in trouble with Dr. Pepper. I made fun of Larry Culpepper once and I had to learn a lot and figure it out. And there's a lot of trial and error and discovery. And now it's become secondhand in terms of understanding, like, all we have to do is understand what college football is, which is probably the most chaotic and flawed of all sports and constantly changing, but lean into that and have fun and understand that it's also, because of that, it's beautiful. I would argue college sports is super, like, fandom in college sports is probably the closest you come to religion, in terms of just like how you feel in a stadium, like in Baton Rouge or whatnot. So lean into that. And by doing that, it's the long-term payoff of you create a brand that people relate to.
Mhm.
And then if you have a brand that people relate to, if you're a West Virginia fan, you've played in 2018, you played in 2008, you've seen what we do, and then out of left field, we're not even a Big 12 football game. Out of left field, it's announced you're playing the Duke's Mayo Bowl. They're excited because they know that it's a brand that's fun, that relates to, that doesn't take itself too seriously, and they're going to show up and have the time of their lives. So that's the payoff. It's a 10-year bet, but it's paying off. And I think it's also paying off in terms of, you see the college football landscape. I think in terms of pound for pound, we punch well above our weight in terms of where we select and whatnot.
Yeah. And I guess that's a big thing that we don't it's challenging in sports sometimes because there's so much of the focus on the short term. How do we sell tickets to tomorrow's game? And yet, sometimes at the expense of the long term, how are we developing fans that are going to be the fans coming to games 10 years from now or 20 years from now?
You go to pro sports, and we were talking about him, and he's a dear friend, and I love his family. But what Dan LaRocca is doing did at the Hurricanes and his entire team, it's a team effort. Every one of these things are team efforts. Even if I'm the only person who touches social media, but there's 7 other people involved. If they didn't trust what I was doing or believe in it, like then it fails. Everything has to be. If you're building a brand, everyone has to understand the goals and the methodology behind it. But what Dan has done, they took like the bunch of jerks into this, and now it's caused chaos. Like the brand building around the Carolina Hurricanes and the payoff is incredible. Now, Danny, my boss, always talks about, and it's tough, is he always uses his hands, but he always builds like a base with his hand. He goes, if you do the work here and then you start winning, everything is exponential. But you have to lay the groundwork. You constantly have to build the foundation of brand, of structures, of organization. You have to constantly be working on that so that when the winning happens, and eventually it will for everyone, then it's exponential and you're set up for it.
And how does that affect the framework for you guys? Because there's not like a championship that you're going for necessarily. Your moment is when I guess the teams get announced, and now it's an opportunity for someone that's been fostered to love this brand of the bowl game of the accounts that they're excited to go. To your point, they want to they go have fun, and to some degree too, there's making these platforms more valuable, so they're more attractive to potential sponsors and partners. So is like what does that payoff look like for you guys of doing the work to build those platforms, and build those and prime those audiences, I guess.
Yeah, and let's put it into there's 2 realms we operate in, right? There is corporate, which is the part where we have, what is the Zoom report of the Mayo dump, right? Like what is the logos, what is the value of the Mayo dump for Duke's Mayo when that viral thing happens? There's that part. There is the sponsorship fulfillment. And we're crushing it in that. Like I think everyone sees Duke's Mayo as a household name. And it was before in the South, but it's expanded, and in the South it's penetrated even more. And that's due to their trust and awesome and incredible team. But also the payoff is the people going to the games, the engagement, what they're doing, and like creating a spectacle where the football game is still the most important thing. The people are suiting up, padding up and going. But we also create an environment where it is fun to go to. It's different, it's unique. And that's kind of the it starts with social, but in the end, if you go in and people are chugging Mayo and whatnot, like it's part of what we're doing all the way, and everything's aligned.
No, that definitely makes sense. And you mentioned it. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it. The Mayo dump. Let's talk about what was that moment like when you guys first started talking about? I mean, hell, like now we look across bowl games. There's Cheez-It dumps. There's French fry dumps. I think there was iced coffee the other night with Screw's Coffee, the bowl game they were sponsoring. So like, what was those first conversations like? Hey, let's do this. Hopefully the coach will be down for it. How's it going to play out? Like, just take me through the background of the Mayo dump, which is so well known now.
Yeah, no, it's been a process, and people, first off, everyone always asks like, what do you think all these other bowls copying and whatnot? Well, the French fry, the potato bowl has been doing that for a while, and also like nothing is new, nothing's original. What we just have is a weird product, and there should be more bowls playing in this space. Everyone should have fun. There's no competition. Like we all have like we're not competing on TV times. We all kind of have our slots, and our brands don't really compete, and we're not competing for ticket sales, but it's different fan bases. So the more the merrier. The more it should be more fun. I just want to say that. And then, but the Mayo dump, it started in 2020 when we announced the teams, or announced the new name. We started talking about what to do, and obviously was announced in the middle of the pandemic. We said, hey, we got to figure out this Mayo dump. There's 1,500 people in the stadium, and we kind of teased it with a picture of a cooler, and then they dumped white Gatorade on Paul Christ, who was in the Wisconsin coach. And the internet reaction was immediately like very frustrating. But in the end, like all content's good content, right? Like got great reactions. And then they broke the trophy. So another viral moment, people moved on. And kind of the conversation I had was like, this is amazing. I'm glad we did this. Huge engagement. You can never fake people out again. Like you just have to you can never do the joke again. And so that started like January 4th of 2022. We started working on how to do it. And there was a lot of different ways we thought the stage and things like that. And the field's artificial. And we settled on working with the stadium, who's been incredible partners on this, is to doing it in the tunnel. And I think it's so unique. Do you do it in the tunnel? It's the coach is sitting there, the check is there for donation, and there's a sense of anticipation.
Yeah.
Every other one, they're chasing the coach and stuff, and it happens. But this is the one where they're on a stage waiting and sitting. And so it's become that. And now we have to figure out the media. Like I have a sketch on my board where I'm trying to understand where photographers need to be, what's the safe way to do it, is the amount of photography. And it's just been a growth. And I think what's been really cool from the beginning of actually doing the Mayo dump is there's been the $10,000 donation to charity from
Yeah.
Dukes. And that just shows that's good people doing good things.
No, I love hearing about it, and I think it's expanded too, where you have Mike Golick scarfing down Mayo in the announcements booth, and or Mike Golick Jr. I guess, but it's just so much fun that you guys will be able to have with that. And to your point, it's a great activation for Duke's Mayo, not just the product, but being able to juxtapose along with their donation as
Yeah.
well. That's
No,
all.
it's insane the amount of, but in the end, it's like it's exciting, and we got to innovate and do something new. And kudos to the Pop Tarts people for the edible mascot. Like that's incredible. So now that's people are like, what are we gonna do this bowl game? I was like, you got to hold steady. You can't do anything in the whim. But now it's what's the next step?
So when you think about like we had a kick-ass year. We were really successful this year. I mean, I think about some of these events that rise up. Like I'm sure you have to resource up, and like you get all this attention during this
Mhm.
relatively short-term time period, and you might see a huge follower growth on Instagram and TikTok or Twitter or whatever, and then you might see a big drop as some of those leave. Not all of them, but some of them leave, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an expected thing. So when you think about like from a digital marketing perspective, what are you trying to accomplish both during and hoping to have after, like the engagement, data capture, sponsor activation? Like, how is it coming to play when you're thinking about how we measure success?
Yeah, we have condensed seasons. If you look at the kickoff games, don't do as well as bowl games, and the kind of neutral site things like that don't do as well as postseason games. The reason being is when you're in season, people look to the teams for information. When you're in postseason, people look to the actual event for the organization. So a lot of stuff leading up is a lot more for like kickoff games, things like that. It's more fan information. What is the mood? What is the feeling? All that stuff, like beautiful pictures. For in season for the bowl, the month of December, it is a lot of sponsorship. It is a lot of information. It's a lot of things like that, and like just trying to generate as much attention as possible and build affinity for what's happening. But when it goes to the off season, say January, like I really feel it used to be, and it drove me crazy. You'd see all these bowl games, like just trying to post through it, or get through the off season and like do countdowns of greatest plays and all this stuff. Well, if I'm a we'll pick my Furman, who doesn't play in bowl games, so I'm safe saying this. If I'm Furman fan, I don't really need to watch like Furman highlights in my bowl game. I'll go to my team to see it, or
Right.
I don't really care about great moments in the bowl game. But why can't we be part of college football culturally? If it's NFL draft, we don't need to talk about who are the famous people from the bowl. And we can, and we can say, XYZ is playing the bowl. That's fine. But why can't we have more fun and just call the draft like the retirement league draft? Like if you retire from college, you're going to the NFL. Why can't we just continue the brand and be more opportunistic and probably post less? You're not going to lose as many followers, but also you'd be more appreciative if you just pop up on a random night when something's culturally happened and you just like throw a mayonnaise joke in there and pop back down. People love that.
I like
That
that.
you don't always have to be ever present and always have to be like fully on like your talking points as a brand when it's not in season. You can kind of lean into whatever.
No, I think that's really well put, and it's not like you shouldn't be trying to play a volume game. You shouldn't be trying to get like, oh, we
No.
haven't hit our impressions target this month. Yeah, we better post 5 more times.
God, if you're chasing impressions, you're just eating empty calories. Like I think impressions so much are empty calories. Granted, I judge a lot of success on impressions in bowl season and stuff like that. That's fine, and it allows me to kind of gauge where fan bases are in terms of if they're on Twitter, Instagram, things like that. Like I view that sort of impressions. But if you're chasing like impressions as your main tent pole, especially in our world, like I think by now we all realize that one X or Twitter or whatever, like you're losing it because not as people are on the platform.
Yeah.
Other platforms are different. It's just we should view that as not a way we should gauge success.
This is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, especially what for you guys with such a lean team, both during and after bowl season. Do you really have to be really careful about not careful, I guess the wrong term, but really picky when it comes to where you put your time and resources on social, on digital. Like we talk about, Twitter diminishing. I mean, heck, like we're talking, I don't, not to date this podcast, we're talking the morning after Twitter was down for a good handful of hours last
That's
month.
what, so this is really funny. Like, and how my role is different. Duke's Mayo Bowl, if the Twitter was down, like, I would have been, like, it'd have been insane. Like, I wouldn't know what to do. I went home last night at like 12. I got home. And because like my role for Jumpman Invitational is so different, it's much more media management, it's much more like organization, like working with Jordan Brand, doing all these things. I had no idea Twitter was down until I went home. I was doing like some random searches, and that's much more of an Instagram event. I was just like searching and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get the hashtag Jumpman. I was like, it must be because I'm exhausted. I had no idea Twitter was down. Like that just shows you I'm such a Twitter power user in regular life as I'm trying to curb that addiction. But it is it just my role is different and everything, and that's something I'm having to learn to embrace is like to understand each event speaks to a different audience and speaks on a different platform primarily.
So does that mean like we're looking at a certain event? Maybe we don't need to touch TikTok as much for this one, or
Yeah.
Instagram, Threads, YouTube. Like, how do you think about how you allocate resources and when they're so scarce?
Yeah, it's really kind of approaching. So we brought back the Sports Foundation's Instagram this year, and that's been a big success. We've been running more ads and seeing a lot of growth because we now understand that culturally, like people are going there more, specifically about like because we have such beautiful imagery. Like, why not just use that? And then like our Charlotte Sports Twitter is more news and stuff like that. When it comes to like events that are like non-event branded social, we use those. So like Ally Tip Off, Jumpman are all Charlotte Sports Foundation.
Mhm.
And we just know going back to our kind of formula, we know like regular season, no one's really going to be going to us for anything other than news and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is lean in more on Instagram, show photos, show the feeling, do all that. When it comes to other stuff, like I need to figure out the Mech Miles are running event. I mean, I run, but I need to figure out how those people communicate and talk. We don't have a Twitter platform for that. Like I just didn't launch one.
Yeah.
We're playing around with we're playing around with TikTok for the bowl game and seeing what happens. We've been like doing it for the past 3 months and with some success and encourage people to send me notes on how to get better, but it's mostly just chaotic stuff we do in the office just to have fun. So I don't know if that answers your questions. It's something, it's event to event. I have to sit down and figure it out. I'm not someone I've never, even when I ran my content strategy business, I advised a lot of people to not set content calendars. I just think a lot more thematic, especially if you're in the live event world. Like we live in a really horrible time with a lot of tragic things happening. So anytime someone like creates a content calendar and scheduled tweets out a week away, I'll be like, that's terrifying. Like, what if something happens, you forget to delete a tweet? What if like the context is lost? Like, I'm so much more of a fan of understanding the themes you need to hit or your checklist and then being opportunistic around it. So when I think around content for the bowl, there is no content calendar. There is a checklist of, hey, I need to hit these things probably each day, but I'm not pre-writing content. I'm not doing anything. It is what I'm thinking in the moment or what I'm trying to do. Like literally, if it says thinking about Mayo, I'm probably just thinking randomly about Mayo.
Oh, I love it. So let's talk briefly. A few more minutes left here with Miller Yoho, Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation. Let's talk briefly about what happens when those teams get selected. How does that, if at all, does it change the strategy? Do you guys collaborate with those teams? Like, here's how we're going to work with you guys on content, especially for the off-site events or the off-field events that the players are going to, whether they're going to a children's hospital or going to the zoo or whatever
Yep.
it might be. So, what's that collaboration like, and what's the content strategy like when that moment hits? Like, okay, we got our teams.
So the first thing is I try to equip them to best understand how to like North Carolina's in our bowl game this year. They've been to the stadium enough. I don't need to do this with them. Like West Virginia to help their content team how to do their job effectively. So when they come to the stadium, helping them best understand how to get where, like the structure of their job, like where's the video editing space, where's this, how to get up and down the press elevator. The same with our events. I'll be with them saying, hey, here are the good shots. Here's this, because they're far more resourced, they're far more equipped to show the behind the scenes of what their team is doing. My job is not to show the team experience. Like I should overview it and I should amplify their content and I should provide context and I should do it. My job is to show what people show to one, open up the curtain to show, hey, this is the team event. Here's what it looks like to have a 300-pound man getting in a stock car.
Mhm.
And then on bowl game, my job is to make it that it feels like the game is talking to you, like you are a part of like you're a friend of the game. I should not be doing play by play. I should not be doing any of that. The teams do it far better than me, are far more equipped. And plus, if you're following us on Twitter, you're probably going to be following us watching the game anyway. So I should be talking to you along with the video stream. Same way with Selection Sunday. Like we should just be, why not just be talking to the fan base as a fan was there? Like people get mad as we'll be like, we still don't know who we're taking. That's the truth. Still don't know.
Yeah.
Or if things happen, like we'll comment on it or whatnot. Like we shouldn't ever have like going back to my belief, like there's no like content strategy. Like yes, well packages of content we want to put out there, but there's no like, and let me rephrase it. We do have a content strategy. There's no content like cadence specifically built out because all over the world where everything changes so much and you have to be nimble, which is also the benefit of having a one person team.
And do you guys get any sort of access to the student athletes, to the coaches? I mean, I'm sure from a PR perspective, certainly that they might do their press conferences, but beyond that, it's like, hey, we have this idea for a fun content outing, and
Oh man.
even in that case,
By the way, I
yeah.
just want to point out that like about 3 carts of mayonnaise just went by my office.
Oh,
So that just shows you the life I live. Um, you saw
yeah,
the first
I,
batch
I,
of the team
oh,
Mayo just came in.
oh, geez.
Uh,
We need to have some video on this podcast so you can see them. See,
yeah,
but yeah, is it
we
like facilitating these content activations, or is there some times where you guys are doing something for your own accounts that and you work with the players and work with the coaches?
we can. I don't think the like one like anything. All right, let's talk about the bowl. Like our bowl voice, I don't think a coach is ever going to really relate to. So it's just I don't think that's would
True.
work. Players, we more so just amplify their content. In the end, like I want them to have an experience where they don't feel like beholden to do everything we need them to. Like we do have a media day. I might ask them random questions, things like that, and then try to engage them that way. We'll show the fun they're having, but in the end, a bowl game, any event should be a reward for the student athlete. They're the one being rewarded, and I shouldn't be interrupting anything. And that's just my personal belief. Like if I was an 18, 19-year-old guy at Duke's Mayo Bowl, it'd be really annoying to have a 36-year-old guy with a phone and a microphone walk up and ask questions. I'm sure I could create something fun and stuff like that, and we've done it before, but I want their time to be their time. That's kind of my philosophy.
And let's talk briefly too. And we'll get to the shirtless stat in just a moment, but I can keep you all day. But I know you got to go eventually. Bowl games to prepare Mayo to work out. But let's talk briefly about the nature of bowl games and how they've been changing with opt outs,
Yeah.
with NIL. I know you guys knew some stuff there, and certainly everyone was watching to see if Drake May, the star UNC quarterback and likely
Yeah.
number 2 pick in the draft, if he was going to play or not. So like how does that affect what you guys can do? What are you guys currently doing, and what's the future of these bowl games look like when a Drake May is gonna opt out?
Yeah. So NIL is interesting. What people don't realize is bowl games, the NCAA says a player cannot directly or indirectly promote an event they're playing in, even afterwards. So that indirectly leaves a really wide gap. And I disagree with it at times, but I understand the approach is the fear is pay for play. I would argue pay for play is probably already happening in other places, but completely understand. Um, so what we do is we create a marketplace where we have a place that players can enter, and then we promote the marketplace. So a way that you can engage with them, whether it's almost like a cameo type thing, or if you're a local business, while a player's in town, have them stop by your pizza shop and create content. Like so, we want to create a marketplace. And then we also do stuff with a graduate like Chad Ryland last year. It was our bowl ambassador. And we did an NIL deal with him, and he went and did he did like interviews for us, and then he also went to a food bank and donated his time as part of that. And that's a big believe. But there's this whole, and we talked about this. We'll reveal it. We talked about this last. I want to talk about this. We talked about it before. Is everyone thinks NIL and player payment is this like bowls are gonna get to a point where they can pay a Miller Yoho first round, second round quarterback to play in their game, which will affect ticket sales. Well, first off, I think any player that has the ability to go to the NFL draft, I do not fault them for it because going to the NFL draft when you can is important because one, that's a huge monetary thing for your family, but also gets you 1 year closer to your big payday. The second contract's the most important thing. And that's why these players go early. Like go a year earlier too than what you would consider because they can get to their second contract first, faster. So financially, I don't not fault a player for it. Secondly, let's just make up a number. This is not a true number. Let's just say let's say I had 50 pennies. Well, let's go really low of marketing budget. And let's say that marketing budget, I paid the 50 pennies to a player to get him to play in the game. That player is not going to generate 50 pennies worth of ticket revenue that I can using those 50 pennies on SEO, on
Yeah.
display, on paid social. No player for a bowl our size is going to generate the amount of ticket difference for them playing or than I could using digital methods, in my perspective.
Mhm.
Even if you go to a large bowl and they are able to pay, say you pay a Yoho 80K to play in the game, it's a tough argument for me to say that 80K for Emilio to play in the game, I could the return on ad spend on that's probably going to be 3 or 4 times if you use a digital method, if you actually use tried and true things. Whereas I don't think paying Milioho 80K is going to generate a return on ad spend of 3 or 4 just from him playing. So that's my perspective. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm a little tired, but to me, it just doesn't make sense for the argument of NIL will get players to play. To me, that's just burning cash. Instead, you should be putting that money to actual legitimate ticket sales. And let's go back to what we just spent 90% of our times doing. It's talking about is creating a brand, a bowl, an environment that is fun to go to, where it doesn't matter who's playing.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfectly put.
All right, that's my soapbox. I go off a little. I ran about it. I just think it's a silly argument.
No, it's I mean it's math. Like you said, it's not, you're not gonna get the return on that investment. And also too, I guess if a fan is just coming to see a single player, then that's not what you guys are marketing most of the time anyway. And
No.
if they want to go see, maybe that player will still be there and do some appearances as well. And there's opportunities.
Yeah, it's yeah, and if they're truly a fan of the team, they're going to show up no matter what. And if they're truly a fan of football, we can create an environment they want to go to. No one player is going to generate the amount of ticket sales it would take to keep them there.
So beyond that too, when you guys get those teams announced, does that just primarily affect your paid social? Okay, let's start targeting these audiences.
Mhm.
Or do you also personally like, okay, let me go and do some research? Like, what are these fans all about? What's their persona? And what are their traditions? And how much of that, how much of your day to day, or like, what do you do when those things get announced?
I'm sure you can appreciate this. And what's insane is majority of ticket sales for a bowl game happen in the first week. So there is no time for optimization. There's no time for whatever. So our targeting is broad and it's geo. So we go Charlotte. We kind of kept it to Charlotte because I'll cover a lot of UNC fans. And then we went to the state of West Virginia and we looked for alumni. We looked for students. And we looked for fans of the teams. It is very broad. And then Charlotte, we do college fans, college sports fans.
Mhm.
It is the broadest targeting and it's terrifying at times, but it is effective. And most of our sales come from search because it's more, more people are looking for tickets when they do the search.
Mhm.
But it's terrifying. And then we get results and things like that. And we shift and we change and do things, but it's that first 4 weeks we have to hit, and you also have to flip logos. You have to do everything. Like you have to create 9 different variations of each creative to launch. And this year, no bowl projection had West Virginia, which is from a conference we're not associated with, or North Carolina playing in our game.
Wow.
So we had to recreate all the creative overnight.
Oh, geez. I mean, it's kind of like, I think when teams are preparing for a draft or whatever, and they get their creative set, except for that one place we're going to put the player's name or the player's face, and I think about how you guys
Yeah.
kind of piggybacked off of the sorority rush talk type
Yep.
thing, had it ready, and just had to stick in the team
Oh,
name.
there's like 6 different variations that we went through that day as things changed, and we're very fortunate. The content company we work with, Stephen Malik, I was texting him. He was doing updates as I was listening to calls.
Oh man, what a chaotic, but I'm sure fun time. I guess just to indulge me too, like what does that fan base that attends look like? I'm sure it's very diverse, but is it families? Is it college kids? Is it older alums? Is it like businesses to some degree? Like is it mostly locals? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, I think you have to cast a broad net, but I think for us, we're in an NFL stadium and things like that. And also, it's the holidays. So a lot of people for a bowl game assume it's like college students are not. They're usually home. Like it is. Some come and we certainly encourage it. We work on keeping a ticket price so they can get in, but it is usually the 30 to 60 fan. And then in Charlotte, it's people for looking for things to do or engaged fan base here.
Definitely makes sense. And I guess one last thing for you, Miller, before you get to the
Yeah.
I promise, but this is one of my favorite questions to ask. It's game day. Take me through, what does the day look like for you? as much detail as you want to give from the time you wake up to the time you finally hit the hay at the end of the night.
I'm coming off like Jumpman Invitational is nuts because it's on game days. Game days are the calmer days, but it's still like 80 calls leading up to the games. There's just constantly so many things. Like it's the amount of phone calls and text and fire putting out and stuff like that. In a good way. It's like, right? Like there's the way I explained like Jumpman Invitational, there's 8 teams, 2 hotels, 1 arena, 3 sponsors, Jordan Brand, and Jordan Brand had 10 agencies involved that I can think of. So there's just a lot that goes in and and we're an 8-person team. So and we're really, really good. But it's a lot of communication, talking and getting things set up. So that's those game days are like. And then for like a bowl, it's just getting up. I generally try to get the stadium early. I'll kind of have like, hey, here's my checklist of things I need to hit on each platform and go from there. I'll have content creators I'll work with. We'll kind of have the strategies of getting social love, things like that. I work with Reagan Morin, who's awesome. Does a lot of our Photoshop, creative and stuff like that. He's in Iowa, so we're doing everything via text.
Wow.
And then I have a photographer and him on a text, and a photographer on the field shooting text to Iowa. He's building graphics and sending them to me. And then we have our content team who does more of the brand storytelling. They'll be on the ground, and then we'll have kind of a quick social videographer, photographer this year. I'm excited about testing out. And then, so it's just kind of running through things, hitting all the stuff. And then it's just really just trying to understand sentiment. And once again, I don't do play-by-play. I don't find it interesting. I don't think people look to a bowl game for play-by-play. They'll look for the teams. Or they'll just watch the game. So why can't like I remember like I found like my favorite post I can remember is like I was wandering around like a game and I found like a South Carolina like an 8-year-old boy asleep during the game, and I was like, yeah, and like I think they were losing pretty badly, and I asked his parents to take a picture. They said yes. I was like, and I think I just tweeted like a great day for a game, and he just passed out. Just like things like that.
Oh, that's great. And then when the Mayo dump happens, are you there shooting with the camera? Or do you have someone else doing that? Are you there like supervising?
I'm supervising media on that, and then I get video of it. Generally Dukes, Sarah's awesome on their team. Does a good job. She usually captures the vertical video, and I'll try to get horizontal. So we kind of tag team it that way.
And then hopefully in the days following, you guys can finally exhale and relax a little bit.
Well, I'm sure everyone who's listening to this can appreciate there's the photos are coming in, you're posting, you still have that momentum, so you're getting going. So I'm looking forward to January 28th. We have a couple of days off coming up. I think everyone on our team has the calendar circled. But I mean, our job is I mean, I have post game. Most people leave the stadium. I still have post game interviews and then recapping, and then that continues for a few days, which is great. I love what I do. Like, there's no complaint. Like, as I said, I grew up going to our games, so it's a passion. Like, my boys will be at their first football game ever together. Like, there's a lot of fun things that happen, and like, I wouldn't change my life for anyone.
So great. And the adrenaline's pumping, and it's passion. It's what it's all about. Well, depending on when you're listening to this, this might be right before the game, might be after the game. But Miller, it's so much fun to be able to talk to you. We're going to have some fun with you coming up in our condiment segment, my clever name for the quick hitting questions. First episode, shareable stat, coming up right now. Such fun stuff and awesome stuff from Miller Yoho, Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation. Really good, really articulate and thoughtful, has a reason for what he does, a strategy in place while also operating on the fly, and just awesome stuff from him. But we'll have some more fun coming with Miller in our condiments segment, our quick hitting questions with him. Some more good stories and insights there, so stick around for that. But first episode, shareable stat. This episode shareable stat is, I couldn't resist, these are good stats, all about Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, and the NFL. According to Tubular Labs, since Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce went public with the fact they were dating, when she first appeared at that first NFL game to support Travis, the NFL's female audience on Facebook and YouTube combined increased 29.4%. I mean, 29.4%. We're talking in the millions here already, and it increased nearly 30%. Imagine that happening for a team or organization or brand account that you run. 29% in the female demographic. Talk about a needle mover. And also, alongside that, Taylor Swift's TikTok audience, the amount of NFL videos they watch, or the percentage of audience that watch NFL videos, rose from 2% to 15%. So if you look at Taylor Swift's audience on TikTok, there was 2% watching NFL videos. Now there are 15%. Again, just astounding. Huge growth all coming from the full economy that is Taylor Swift. And what do you take away from it? Well, first, of course, we already knew that the Swift and Travis Kelce phenomenon was moving the needle, was having an effect. You saw it across the board on social, even with TV ratings, certainly with merchandise sales, podcast listens, and all that as well. But also, it really goes to show that these collabs, it's obviously not a formal collaboration between the NFL and Taylor Swift at this point, but how you can tap into the audience, borrow audiences from others, get them to sample your product. Now, of course, 100% of her audience that is sampling the NFL is not going to stick around, but some non-zero percentage will. And if you think about the amount of people that started paying attention based on those cerebral stats today, that now paid attention to the NFL, if just 0.5% of her audience converts to NFL fans, that is enormous. And a diverse audience they weren't reaching before, and certainly one that is prone to pop culture and being part of a community and being fans of something. So when you see an organization, you see a team doing a collaboration with a creator, with an influencer, maybe going beyond what the hardcore fan would expect them to do, and working with a collaborator to try to capture some of that audience, it's worth it because it can move the needle, and all it takes is one really big one to matter, and all of a sudden you can have a much more diverse audience. We're starting to reach not necessarily peak levels, but certainly social platforms are becoming a bit more fragmented. You can still make a killing, but it's harder to get that kind of growth. Again, 29% growth in the NFL's female audience across Facebook and YouTube. To get that kind of growth is not easy these days in the social media space. So the more you can take swings and try to hit home runs, try to continue to find new audiences and get them to become part of your community, part of your addressable audience is a really powerful thing. So that's a shareable stat. Again, since Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce started dating officially, and she went to her first NFL game, the NFL's female audience across Facebook and YouTube increased 29%. And if you look at Taylor Swift's TikTok audience, previously 2% of them were watching NFL videos on TikTok. Now 15% are. All right, that's a shareable stat. Share it, think about it, talk about it, but more importantly, stick around because here is more with Miller Yoho, Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation. Right back in this episode of Shareable Stat, and I'm joined once again by Miller Yoho, Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation. Miller, we had so much fun talking all things strategy, content. Are you now ready for a few condiments?
I'm very anxious.
All right, number one. Tell me, besides Duke's Mayo Bowl, your favorite or most memorable campaign in your career so far?
That's a really great question. I should have prepared for. It's gonna be weird. I wrote content for Hot Wheels Monster Truck. That was fun. When I was doing freelance. But I think probably the most beneficial one was writing paid social for drywall company. That was an interesting. It taught me a lot about how to be creative writing about something really boring. But probably I think the thing that I've enjoyed and learned a lot was I worked with Visit North Carolina social media when I was at the agency. So it was a lot of travel, a lot of first person content, a lot of figuring things out in a brand voice that I wasn't familiar with.
That's awesome. That's probably a dream job for some people, just to be able to go outdoors and go all these places and take pictures. And that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Number two, tell me the most viral social post from your time with Charlotte Sports Foundation. Could be across any brand, and also the most memorable interaction on social. Who's someone that commented or liked, and you're like, oh shoot, that's pretty cool. So most viral and most interaction.
I think the first time it went viral was I always joke that Alabama's always eligible until they're not. So like it was like 2015. I randomly said it was like they were winning like 30 in the SEC championship game, and I was like, we can finally confirm that Alabama's not playing it was the Belk Bowl at the time, and that went viral. I also like when Belk Bowl left us as a sponsor, we entered the transfer portal and then never tweeted until Duke's Mayo came. I really enjoyed that. But interactions, there's a lot of fun random ones because a lot of people don't like mayonnaise, and so you just get a lot of fun interactions that way. Or fly in. There was random US senators sometimes will comment or stuff like that. It's just there's a lot of randomness that happens in terms of where people line up because Duke's Mayo is really a fun product to work with because from my perspective, you either love or hate mayonnaise. If you hate mayonnaise, I'm not going to convert you to liking mayonnaise. It's just not possible. But if you like mayonnaise, Duke's is such a superior product that people, once they try it, don't go back and are fiercely loyal.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm probably on the non-mayo side, but I'm willing to try. There's some, but I think a lot of people too probably don't realize that some of their favorite foods have mayo
with mayo. Yeah.
But then they say they don't like mayo, and just Number three, going back to your time at Queen's University, tell me what should we know about the school and its athletic programs? Or what's something historical about it? What's a famous former athlete, or what's a tradition? Like, what's something that's fun to know about Queen's University?
Well, it just went D1, which is cool. And it was fun, but they won like seven straight D2 swimming national titles, but they started the year after I left. So the year I was there, I was their practice run, and I was driving around in 8 inches of snow in a minivan full of swimmers in Ashtabula, Ohio, and that was kind of a realization that maybe this isn't I need to probably shift different roles in my career.
Wow, that's awesome. You just missed the dynasty of
I
swimming.
keep asking for the pre-ring ring.
Number four for you, Miller. This can be a fun one. Tell me just what's an idea that you haven't done yet that you had to leave on the cutting room floor that relates to the Duke's Mayo Bowl or Belk Bowl. What's something
Mm.
that you thought about, or it was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this, or something you haven't done yet, and maybe we should watch out for it.
Uh, I have a couple ideas I don't want to give away. Like I have a selection team announcement that's like would be really funny, and then I think we got to change the Mayo dump a little bit next year, or shift it around, or come up with some ideas. So I'm not gonna give away too much, but yeah,
Keep us guessing. We'll be following anyway, so we'll look forward
yeah.
to seeing the
I
continued.
don't want to. I hate being that guy, but it's the truth. I don't want to.
So I feel like I wouldn't want to give my secrets either. All right, number five. Tell me the platforms that consistently work the best for Duke's Mayo Bowl, and also if you had all the resources in the world, what's one that you wish you could spend more time on or be on, period?
I wish I could spend more time on TikTok. I think our brand voice lines up well. I just need to spend more time, and it's just tough. And then we do best on Twitter.
Yeah. Have you guys experimented with Threads yet, or is that something maybe you look at for next year? If
I
it's
opened it the first night, and I've been turned off ever since. I think if like I'd figure it out. I'm also intrigued by Blue Sky. Like I like the people there. They're nice. But Threads was tough just because everything has to be like when I logged in and seeing people I don't want to see, and then it's also not chronological. That was just
right.
something we struggled with, especially with we only exist in a certain time period, so we need to be chronological.
No, that definitely makes sense. And that's why I don't spend much time on it myself yet as
Mm.
well. All right, number six. Tell me, you talked about going to old bowl games there at Charlotte when you're growing up, but throughout your life, no matter what, where or when, the most memorable game, college or pro, you've been at in person.
Man, that's great. Man, you stumped. I should call it best. I think there's like just moments like the College World Series is a moment everyone should experience. Just like that's just a really remarkable one. I think the Super Bowl. But it's something I've been trying to focus on, and this is not the answer to your question, but it allows me to go on soapbox. Like that I think a lot about that Michelob Ultra commercial where it's like everyone's holding a phone except that one guy holding the Michelob Ultra. It's like I'm really trying to focus on going to sporting events when I'm not working to just not take photos and stuff. I know we all have like the camera that takes a million photos and they're all beautiful, but I'm trying to be like not take as many photos at games, and I'm trying to like actually like live in moments.
Yeah,
And I'm finding that to be really rewarding.
yeah. Remember the feeling. Don't remember like the
Yeah.
inspiration.
Like the photo is never going to replicate what you could see with your own eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to Europe myself a few years ago and looking around at a famous landmark, and everyone was taking their pictures, and then they put their phone away and they walked away, and that was it. They were done. It's like they're checking off the list. I got my picture, and
Yeah,
that's the way to experience things, and just
100%.
ring through. Number seven. I'll let you choose a local team if you want to, but also I'm going to force you to choose maybe a non-local team as well. The sports team whose social media you most enjoy and why.
I'm not a hockey fan. I mentioned them earlier, but I think what the Canes do is really cool. We'll call it the local team. The Carolina Hurricanes, and then I mean, I think this everyone probably should say this. The San Diego Chargers TikTok is just really
Yeah,
great. And brand voice aligns with how I view it should be.
yeah. The Chargers continue to do a great job with their social, and they get mentioned a lot on the
Not
pod.
I did say San Diego Chargers. I apologize,
I
whoever.
let
I
you slide on
apologize.
that one. It's a
Uh,
Freudian slip.
I've been like 4 days of 4 hours of sleep, so I apologize to anyone. Sorry, LA Chargers. And that's a probably tough one for you knowing where you're at. I really do apologize.
No worries. I'm actually a Raiders fan anyway, so I don't. The
Well,
Chargers.
it's probably a double strike for you now.
This is gonna be a fun one, Miller, or a good one, or a delicious one, hopefully. It's our food question. I always ask a food questions. So tell me, if I go down there to Charlotte with you, what's the best meal to get? Where are you taking me? What are we getting? And also a little bonus part. What is the best use of mayo in a food or meal?
Well, I think the best use of mayo is a simple tomato sandwich in the summer. It's two pieces of bread, mayonnaise on both sides, salt and pepper on each side, slice tomato, put it down, preferably at the beach, slice it in half. It's amazing. Um, But I think Charlotte has incredible food options. For I'm a father of two kids under the age of 5, so I don't get to experience a lot of them often. But I would say I have some places that can go pizza by the slice that's relatively cheap and TCBY next to it. And that's pretty much anytime I have the kids and mom's out of town, that's our go-to food location.
Well, I don't think I would look for pizza when I visit Charlotte, but
Yeah.
hey,
Look,
I'll hang out with you. We'll get some TCBY. I'm down for that.
we can go to my hometown Gastonia and get some really good barbecue.
There we go. I'm down for that. Number 9. Tell me, another marketing director for a bowl game comes and says, Miller, what do you think I should be doing? What's your number one tip to another marketing director for a bowl game?
That's a really great question. I think it would be sit down and understand the fans.
Hmm.
I think we oftentimes try to talk to fans like they're NFL or whatnot, like understand fans.
Yeah, and you guys and the college fan, to your point, like earlier, they are a unique brand of fan, and
Well, I anytime I talk to young folks or man, I sounded old there. I apologize. Is so often the creative curse is we think of an idea, we post it, and then the audience doesn't react to it.
Mhm.
Always you should go from understand your audience, understand the platform, and then create the content. Work the problem backwards in terms of what you're building.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons to learn is that just because you don't get it doesn't mean the audience that you're trying to reach won't, or like that you're making stuff for your audience. Now you're making stuff for yourself.
Yeah.
That's a big learning that I've had in my career as well. All right, last one for you here, Miller. This can be a good one. The most fun or most intense schools fan base you've encountered in college football. Which school does like their fans are nuts?
West Virginia fans are really fun right now. Tennessee fans didn't like me because they didn't paint the end zones. And they went after me. But I think we're friends now. Clemson fans, because I'm an alum, I think can be a little bit annoying. I
Well,
say that as an alum, so don't get mad at me.
I like those. And hey, I think West Virginia fans have definitely will have some fun and maybe get a little country roads as well with those guys.
Yeah.
All right, Miller, had a great time consuming some condiments. Now it's your chance to take over the podcast and tell us your social media all-star to follow. Just tell us who they are, why they're worth following, and where to find them.
This is so going back to the NL conversation, there's a guy who's out there who I think puts out the best perspective, and he actually has like a newsletter he puts out. His name is Brady Keller. And he works at Open Doors. Oh, sorry, Brayley Keller. He works at Open Doors. And he does awesome stuff. I think he has the best voice, best knowledge, and is way too young to be that smart in terms of that space. And I think he's going to go incredible places. So I really enjoy his content.
All right, definitely a great shout out and someone I've come across quite a bit. And how about you? Where can we find you, as well as all things Charlotte Sports Foundation and Duke's Mayo Bowl across social?
Yeah, so Charlotte Sports is at CLT Sports across the landscape, Duke's Mayo Bowl across the landscape, Twitter or TikTok is something different. You can find it. Then me, just follow me on X. Everything else is private, but or Twitter, whatever it is. It's just at Miller Yoho.
Look him up,
And
find him.
LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I post on LinkedIn. There you go.
Look him up, find him, and learn from him. Miller, just cannot thank you enough for giving us some of your time today during the busiest time of year. It's so great to unpick your brain and learn from you, and just thanks so much.
Thanks for the great conversation.
Thank you so much again to Miller Yoho, Director of Marketing Communications for the Charlotte Sports Foundation. Really, really enjoyed talking all things Duke's Mayo Bowl. Loved everything they do. Loved the way they had their sorority style video this year to lead up to the bowl game announcement of the teams. Love what they do with the Mayo Dump, the personality that they have on social media, the way they have fun and participate in the college football conversation in a fun way, a fun, unique, and original way, and how other bowl teams have kind of picked up the mantle and how they sort of started a trend. Just so much good stuff coming from Miller Yoho. I appreciate him coming on the podcast today in a very, very busy time of year for them. But that'll do it for this episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast, the last episode of 2023. Thanks again for listening. I am your host, as always, Neil Horwitz. You can find me on Twitter at NJ287, on LinkedIn, the website, dsmsports.net. Every episode, more content, and of course, the podcast is on your favorite podcast platform. We got more shows coming in 2024. Might have a short holiday break until the next episode. But we have more fun stuff, great stuff coming at you. Can't wait to have another great year with you on the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. Till next time, this is Neil Horvath signing off for the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast.